It's recorded on the computer. So, welcome to session number 21 that I'm hosting at the International Coaching Week 2026. This is my fourth year being here. The first year I had only one session. The second I had 13. The third I hosted 21. And this time I've done five more, so 26 sessions across the week. So my week's been packed. I've been part of some excellent sessions. They've been really beautiful, really mind blowing. Some fascinating demos, beautiful learnings. I'm just exiting from what was called a dyad framework. There's a 3 hour conversation with ICF Doha after this. It's been a packed space. I am passionate about coaching, which you'll find out more about. I'm really interested in communicating, contributing to the aspect of coaching, which has been a game changer for me. A little bit about myself. My name is Sunil, and I will just share a presentation. This will be the only slide that you'll get to see, except maybe in this session you'll get to see one more slide. But otherwise, this is all that you'll get to see. My name is Sunil Satyendra here, and Nima Coach is my business name or the company's name. Quite a lot of them right now call me Hi Nimma, but I've gotten accustomed to that. It's been part of my equation for now for quite some time. I have been in the coaching world for the last 3.5 to 4 years. This July, I complete 4 years in coaching. I am an accidental coach, as in like I did not know what coaching was. I'd never been coached before, and neither had anybody in my space said anything that's got to do with coaching. I came into it as fate would have it, or the universe wanted me to come here, and so I was here. So I previously used to work as an engineer at a German automotive company called Bosch, and I used to work there as a software engineer developing braking systems, radar, cruise control. And while I was there, I was part of leading around 700 people into corporate social responsibility initiatives, volunteering, being a part of the change ecosystem, and more. And then slowly moved into training, sustainability, mentoring, onboarding, HR during COVID. And then essentially, as fate would have it, I became a coach. Within 3 months, I had done my ACC 100 hours. Within the 9 more months additional, I had finished my 500. And then 3 more months in ACC as well as PCC was done within the first 15 months of being into coaching. And this was coaching, love at first coaching, and I never looked back after that. I completely said goodbye to my corporate career and got into full time coaching. And coaching is one of the businesses that I run. I run four other businesses, or three other businesses primarily. In terms of LinkedIn branding, podcasting as a branding source, I teach poetry to kids, and I also use poetry in coaching. It is also an aspect why metaphors align so beautifully with me. And this is something that I've been building for the last 3 years. Currently, I am on my PCC renewal segment. Another 6 months, I will have to renew my PCC. And I'm also looking at my MCC journey. About 1,300 hours is already done. Another halfway to go. The hours can be pretty easily scaled, so I'm very confident of that space. But right now, putting myself into understanding the nuances of MCC and getting to that space. And I am a multilingual coach. I coach in three languages, English being a global segment, Hindi, which is also one of the Indian languages, spoken across the length and breadth of the country, predominantly across the north and the east and the south, east and the west. And in the south, there are four languages, out of which I speak one, predominantly four, and out of which I speak one. And in that, which is my mother tongue, Kannada, I coach in that. So across Bangalore and across Karnataka, I'm the only coach who proudly puts it out there that I coach in the native language. And this is my specialization, and so is poetry and coaching. And Nimma coach basically means your coach in the native language that I'm part of. So I'm always your coach. I'm always the people's coach. And that's how it builds, and that's how the entire ecosystem is built. And you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Here is the QR code. And also, you will find another QR code here with the WhatsApp community called the Tribe of Coaches. A lot of us who are not new to this caller, already part of this tribe of coaches. Initially, Lily was also mentioning. So this is where the segment of around 330 coaches are there right now. Some very active, some less so, some very inactive ones. But then they are there. It's a community. We're not a peer coaching group. We are much more than that. So it's open for people from across the world. People can join in. And this very ICW, across the last 1 week, we had more than 35 people join our group. That means we're doing something right. And we've been doing it for the last 2.5 years. And it's a space where no coach needs to feel alone after the coach training is done. And that's where we exist. And that's a little bit about me, and that's a little bit about us. And this, in a way, is all that there is. Maybe the other last part of trivia is about I have written about 7,500 poems in the last 15 years. So yeah, that's about that. And if you like this session, please feel free to go to LinkedIn, give me a testimonial, and here's my WhatsApp. You can always get in touch. So this is the formal side of the session, and we will kick off the session around metaphors. How many of you are familiar with metaphors, imageries in coaching or generally in life? Raise of hands, thumbs up. Yeah, Dr. Ivy, for sure. You also being a writer, I think that really comes along. Hannah, yes. What are your first impressions of metaphors? Anybody would like to share? Yes, Hannah.
I think metaphors help person to open themselves broader, so to say. Maybe if they don't want to talk about some topic directly, they can describe the topic or present this topic in the form of a metaphor. And then it makes the conversation deeper and more meaningful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Dr. Ivy, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, what I have found is that many people who use metaphor during my coaching, it comes spontaneously without them planning it, and that's the power of metaphor. So if you are able to pick it and unpack it, it helps to dig deeper. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I loved it. So beautiful aspect. It comes naturally. It's not something that's manufactured. We don't have to wait for it. It's part of our culture as an individual, as a human space in terms of communicating. Metaphors are also called as the meaning making spaces for the client. So metaphors is how the client derives meaning into their own life. Now, obviously, some of these very easier ones would be that I have used. I usually keep sharing that I'm a walking, talking metaphor machine. So the walking, talking metaphor machine itself becomes a metaphor in the first place. And people share, hey, it's looking like I am traveling in two boats. Again, an imagery and a metaphor that comes along. People say, like I had one where I said, it feels like I am a Formula One driver and I'm waiting for the flag to come down, right? And that was also a metaphor. And then I've had clients tell me saying, my life looks like an empty handkerchief. And that's been an interesting space there. People have also shared that, oh, I feel that I am the neglected younger brother. Just with that, they're able to share not just that words that directly shares, but it's something far more deeper. And if you go to the world of linguistics, metaphors exist because metaphors are able to tell a story without having to tell the story. Now, all I have to say is it looked like David versus Goliath. Very quickly, you are knowing that it's an underdog story. I don't have to share anything else. I don't have to go back as to who David was, who Goliath is, what's happening, where do I find myself. It's a way to express ourselves, to share a story, share far more than what is directly visible to the eye. And instead of sharing an entire textbook, all I'm giving you is a handbook or one word to share, hey, this is how I feel. For us as coaches, why are metaphors gold mines in the first place? Because it allows us to really get in touch with the client in a way that the client does not even comprehend for themselves. Their way of life is described by themselves in terms of metaphors. So I am a honest person. Honest person is also a way of describing somebody. And so we can say, oh, yes. And when somebody asks me, I usually ask people this question, and I will ask that question and they'll come back to my answer. Right. So if you were a animal, who would you be? What animal would you be? The chat window is a perfect place for the metaphors to come along. If you were an animal, what animal would you be? You can unmute if that's easier aspect. We are about 14 people, so we can basically do that. So, Shara, welcome. Adame, welcome. So, just sharing, we're asking you a question in terms of if you were a animal, spirit animal, what would that be? Who would you be? Panda. Oh, lovely. So we have Poe fans in the house. Whale, lovely. Jaguar. Wow, beautiful. Squirrel, lovely. Hmm. And I usually, whenever somebody asks me, I tell them that I am that playful baby elephant that you find on the African Serengeti, right? So uh, that's who I am. I'm a playful, young, very much innocent, very much in my own world, protected by the motherly aspects of love from so many aspects of life through that aspect of being a baby elephant. That just that the baby elephant has so much of backstory, and I'm pretty sure a seahorse has a backstory, squirrel has a backstory, jaguar has a backstory, whale has a backstory, panda has a backstory, and because you resonate with that, you've been able to put that there in just that one word. It is giving you an aspect to share so many things, and they're your values, your needs, your beliefs, your ecosystems, what you resonates to, who are you as an individual. And pretty sure somebody who's looking at a whale will not look at a dolphin the same way, even though it's in an aquatic species. Somebody who's looking at a jaguar possibly would not look at a tiger in the same way. And I'm really interested with the seahorse, Karina. So there could be a beautiful story in that. But just because maybe I have seen seahorse and I have my own interpretation of what a seahorse is, and that aspect. So we don't intermingle our metaphors while we're doing coaching. But even before we get there, just this aspect is an indication to say yes, all of us make meanings differently. The question was the same, but your answers are very different. And even if both of us and me and Shora had put, I hope I get your name right, put whales, the reason why both of us said whales would be poles apart. And that aspect of poles apart could also be a metaphor. And the next question is, let me know if I'm going a little too fast. But then the next question is, um, in terms of how many metaphors do we speak while we are speaking in, say, 10 minutes or maybe 5 minutes? Any guesses how many metaphors we may be able to speak in a 5 minute conversation? Exactly. Yeah, so 5 to 10. Thanks, Sheikh. Um, Definitely a little more than that. Um, Now I'd give you a little bit more of an exercise as well. Um, yeah. Yes, for sure, for sure. Um, Subconsciously, very many. Yes, absolutely. Now, hmm, yeah, somebody has asked me a question saying, what's the most favorite thing that you do on a Sunday afternoon? Very innocent question. This is what my answer is. For me, Sunday afternoon is to just sit with myself and look at the aspects of what's happening in nature and sit and beautifully observe life as is. Write a few poems, let the pen basically talk its way to the world. Um, and each time I pause, I'm actually taking a deep breath and really sitting in with whatever is happening at a deeper level across the world and across my own self. And to have the pen flow through me is like the universe talking to me as much as anything else. And usually I sit alone, but not lonely. And at that place, it almost feels that I have subscribed to the radio of the universe. I am able to talk about a spider that is jumping from one leaf to another. What a beautiful leap of faith it does. I'm also able to look at the horns of a vehicle, just saying, hey, you know what, I'm here. Give me a little more space. I need to figure out what to do, what not to do. And also the aspect of me as an individual observing life and not being really sure whether I am the one being observed as much. And I sit there for maybe about just 5 or 10 minutes. And yet it feels like an eternity has passed for me while I'm enjoying my Sunday afternoon. And here I pause. And here I am excited to see how many of you have heard how many metaphors.
I knew this question would come. So, alone but not lonely.
Hmm.
What is that? Horns of the. I started counting and noting it down, and in the midway there were so many I lost the track. But yeah, it was almost a metaphorical answer. Let me put it that way. Um,
Hmm.
I should have I should have
Yeah.
written the pen and a
Yes.
paper. But yeah, it was majorly a metaphorical answer.
Yes. And do you feel that your clients do share that in a session, especially the wordy clients, the one who talk a lot? They are a walking, talking metaphor machine. They talk a lot.
Executives, yes. General, maybe no. But people who are at a level, yes, they do speak a lot of metaphors when they're discussing about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Metaphor is an efficiency
Especially when
matrix.
the question is,
No, go ahead,
yeah,
please. Go ahead.
maybe that's a food for thought. Uh, uh, especially when you're asking them who, like you rightly said, when somebody asks you who you are on a Sunday afternoon, I think that's when most of the metaphors come in.
Hmm. So
That's
it's a
that's been
reflective
my
answer.
taken very few coaching sessions. I just started.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I guess when you ask who, that's when most of the metaphors.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I think the aspect of when you ask who of the client, there's always a lot more metaphors that are being shared. And I share that it's an efficiency space because I am able to tell you a lot more about myself in the least number of words, only through the aspect of metaphors. And that's the part of storytelling that has happened over many years and many spaces that can be condensed into a story. And now, because I am assuming with the name that you have, and if I say I am like a Rama, uh, automatically you will know, okay, what are the kind of values that I subscribe to. And I'm not a Ravana, and you know, okay, what are the kind of values that I subscribe to. So in a way, it is telling a lot in less number of sentences. Coming back to this, I think on an average, there were about 30 or 40 metaphors that I counted. Jumping, jumping with faith or leaping with faith. Aspect of observation itself becomes so much of a metaphor. Sitting there with myself alone but not lonely. So I think somebody has also put on the chat that space. Then universe speaks to me. I let the pen write itself. Uh, if you go back to the recording, you'll figure out there are many more such metaphors that people are speaking. And there are simple things that are also metaphors. We may not really, English wise, they're still metaphors. They're able to tell a lot more while telling less. And I think that's what also I have found because I shared that I'm a space where linguistically I work in three languages. And especially when I work in the native tongue, there is just one word and sometimes just a like a raise of an eyebrow or a certain thing is also a metaphor. They're visual metaphors. There's more to it than that. So as coaches, we are trained and we're told to double tap onto that metaphor. And here, when we just also did this exercise, that there are always metaphors that you are talking with, and people are metaphor machines. People make meaning through metaphors. People express through metaphors. For us, what's the challenge as a coach? Is to say which was the most important metaphor of them all. So, which metaphor to hold on to, and which metaphor to ask, saying, "Oh, what does that mean?" So that is again built on the context of what the client was sharing. And also in a way that if at all you had to catch on to one or two words from whatever I shared, paraphrase that, what would it be?
As in, how, I mean, what do you do on a Sunday is what you're
Yeah, so
asking?
you've listened to that, and possibly what were the metaphors that you would connect back to me with and say, "Hey, Sunil, double tap on this." And if you are a coach or some a curious kid on the other side, which one do you feel is the most important one? We obviously understand that there were many metaphors. Which one was the one that you felt was the most important for me?
Um, I think to summarize what you wanted to say was that you're full of yourself and by yourself on a Sunday, doing your own thing, letting the time just pass by and being aware of whatever is happening. For which metaphor, the UPSC level question. But yeah, but then I guess that's what I mean. Maybe someone else can try, but I guess that's I completely understood when you were describing about how you spend your time.
Fantastic, thank you. So even
Metaphor on the
BSc
ball.
level metaphor was also a metaphor. So it's saying more with just one sentence. And then very interestingly, because you said, "Oh, you're full of yourself," could mean that you're full of something, and you could also mean saying, "Oh, you're so full of yourself," right? So the tonality matters. And you're full of yourself, and
True.
my full of myself is two very different segments. And that's the first
Absolutely.
understanding as a coach. Yeah, please.
And that's when you were saying that when a coachee speaks in a metaphorical tone, it is important not to have your own perspective as a coach, but to again question and kind of get to what the coachee actually meant and not like assume your aspect. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes.
more
Absolutely,
questions.
absolutely. The assumptions are a danger because I think Marsha Reynolds said this, and I got to know that Marsha Reynolds said this somewhere else. The thinking in a coaching call is the greatest enemy of a coach because when you think is when you are interpreting the metaphor or interpreting anything else that the client is sharing. Because you are even the core competency says that you are a sensor, right? So if you are a space, you're just sensing it. You are not making your own meaning out of it. All you're doing is sensing and sharing. I sense something here, right? So this is the aspect of what makes metaphors absolutely interesting, and it's the story that the person on the other side is sharing. And for us as coaches, it becomes important to one understand that metaphors are part of our daily life, and metaphors are also part of how the client makes meaning. Metaphors are the doorway into a client's who of the individual, because it explores and exposes that aspect of you as a individual in terms of your needs, in terms of beliefs, in terms of uh, understandings, in terms of programming, in terms of limiting, enabling whatever kind of beliefs that there are. And they're also an indication of, it's like Hansel and Gretel, the kind of breadcrumbs that the client leaves to lead you to that space of, hey, where they want to get to. So that's how metaphors are. And there are a distinction of, you'll have to make a distinction of the English based metaphors that the client is sharing, and also the more important metaphor in the context of the client that the person is sharing. And that you will be able to know if you're reading the body language of the client. So where did the client pause? Where is the client getting more excited as an individual? Which aspects of the body moved while the metaphor was coming? What shifted in terms of the speed of talking? So there are so many active listening segments that will help you to say, oh, this was, I think, the more stronger metaphor to sit with. And it also is an aspect of practice. And one of the reasons I asked you initially whether you are on your ACC journey or on your PCC journey is that at ACC level, it is not required for you to have the hold over the metaphor segment. But at a PCC and beyond, metaphors are your bread and butter. And bread and butter is also a metaphor. That's how we look at it. So there are action-based metaphors, there are linguistic-based metaphors, there are food-based metaphors, there are action-based metaphors. You're also just observing, does the client say, it looks like a tough situation. It feels like a tough situation. And it sounds like a tough situation. So all three are different metaphors. And so with that, you are able to understand in terms of how the client processes their life. And this may not be information that really taps onto anything else later in the session. But then when you are asking them something else, you can also use these as data for your working with that client at a deeper level. And it takes you definitely very deep. One of the examples was I work with poetry and space, in this space. So poetry, imagery, metaphors come in the same line. And I really want to introduce that aspect of poetry in coaching. And it's a space that a lot of us already are doing. Some of us are doing nature-based coaching, some art therapy-based. So there are some mavericks for entering into these equations. And one of those sessions for me was I asked somebody to draw, and they were able to say, "Oh, I think this reminds me of a song from my childhood." And with that, that was the beginning of this saying, "Hey, what is the song? What does the song tell you?" And that was the indication to go into a deeper conversation. And what could have happened over a 3 or 4 conversation segment got finished in 25 minutes. Because that was the opening. It was Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. It was Purja Sim Sim at that point. It just enabled that segment of play to really work. And also, when you're exploring metaphors, it becomes dancing with the client. It becomes playful coaching. You aren't doing your scripted questions anymore. You're going with the flow. You're asking what feels most alive at that point as a question to figure it out. Right. So I would love to just pause here and check. Are you with me on this? Any questions? Any observations? Anything else that you would like to share before we go on to the last 2 bits of this conversation? All right. So let me just. There's something on the chat, but I will come to that. Hmm. Right, it's a question. Can you use, can you generate metaphors from AI and use this? Mary, can you elaborate?
Okay, so what I'm wanting to find out is that might not be very good at noting or generating these metaphors
Mm-hmm.
during the conversation, but you could have those that are predetermined and you have them off head. You've created them from AI and
Mm-hmm.
possibly you find a way of using these. I don't know whether that can sound natural or metaphors. Do you have
Mm.
to learn about them and have quite a number of them and see which works where? Or do you just have
Uh,
to listen and then create them during the conversation?
no, I think you'll have to be
I don't know what works.
you'll have to be aligned. You have to be listening. So my same metaphor will not sit with you in the same way, right? So I may think of, say, an example of a snake and ladders game very differently from how you see it. So the word is the same. And if you look at it, I will just read some of the metaphors that I have noted down that my clients have shared. Uh, that was a dream, voice in my head, vouching for each other, space for myself, learning how to learn, zigzagging on a timeline, time leakage, too much on my plate, gun on my back, feeding past patterns, not my real voice, afraid to use my brain, lighten the load, ask for help, higher margins of myself. And this is just from a list of stuff that I have on my phone. So you don't know what the metaphor the client is sharing. So having any database of frequently used metaphors are not going to be of any use to us as coaches. Because then you're trying to map everything that I am telling onto another metaphor segment. And what I think would definitely not be what somebody else thinks on the same metaphor. So it's better to understand that metaphors are part of it. Start practicing capturing metaphors when somebody is talking. And therefore, over a period of time, also integrate that aspect of saying, how do you catch metaphors? How do you keep that more alive while somebody is talking about this? And what questions do you ask when you have identified a metaphor and you think that is important for the conversation to move forward? So having any list of AI generated metaphors is not going to help. So I hope that's answered that question. Uh, the last but not the least part of the coaching or this session is a beautiful exercise. Yes. What you're looking at is a screen grab. I am hopeful that all of you are able to see. Yes, yeah. Now all of you should be able to see the screen. And that's the image that you have. I want you to describe this in 2 or 3 sentences. Just look at where your attention has gone into this picture.
Sunil, the problem with me is even I'm wild with my thoughts when it comes to observations. This is going, not sure if you're looking at that, but then with this image, like what's coming up in my mind, especially because we're speaking of metaphors, is like, life is a variety with so many colors, double-edged, broken, yet beautiful is what comes seeing this picture.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what does it remind you of?
What does it remind me of? My childhood. If you like, if without thinking, I speak about it, because these are the pencils I used to use to color.
Hmm. And I observe you are smiling. So, what stories did you process while going back to that? I also heard double-edged, broken, but still being able to work.
Yeah, that was the later part of my life. But as a childhood, like, we had these drawing competitions in the art and craft classes, and we used to use these pencils and fight for a new set every time there was a new session beginning, and stuff like that. If I mean, again, pencils, crayons, and all of that. So many, the many
Thank you so
thoughts right
much.
now. But yeah.
Thank you so much. And let me not make you the experimental guinea pig in this conversation, right? So, but uh, just to put the framework back on, anybody else wants to share before I put the point through as to why this is important or what may be. So you can also very freely share on the chat if that works. Different shapes and colors, some more sharp than the others, some might be broken at the moment, but they can still write their stories, express ourselves. Different materials, each position differently, just like people are different and unique phases in their lives. I'm not sure which color to pick. Seems to be going into different directions. Hmm. Two, three sentences. Life goes colorful, two ways to look multi-perspective. Each is coloring is becoming a tough game for me. All right. So again, same image, multiple interpretations. Uh, One person observed this in terms of a double-edged space. They could be that there are, so even if I have to ask you to describe the diagram, there are pencils, then there's also wax crayons. There are pencils that are two, as in like one pencil has two kinds of colors as well. And some of it does not have, it's not sharpened, it's broken, it's blunt. And that's how you describe the picture. But then as soon as I asked Nina about it, I was like, yes, I am seeing XYZ. This reminds me of my childhood. So metaphors are stories that are in a condensed format. So just because the metaphor looks that, the metaphor is not the aspect that we really need to sit with. Because there is something behind the metaphor that is the who of the person. You also will hear this, the map is not the lay of the land, or something like a map is not the continent or something like that. So a metaphor is that gateway or a window, that entry point into that aspect of a coach and or a aspect as a client. And there could be different metaphors that are sharing the same thing. And sometimes you'll also need to be aware that, oh, there is a theme to some of those metaphors and not worry saying, hey, which metaphor do I catch? And very quickly in some of the metaphors that Nina shared, we were able to look at saying how in whatever intensity that she shared with, the broken one and the ones that is both double-sided had something of an interest there. And if you look back, there's a story on the backside. So don't go back to the story. But what is that interpretation of that? In the context of what we've already contracted, what we are already speaking about, that will help us to go deeper. Yes, Ivy, over to you.
I wanted to ask you the relationship between metaphors and visual cards. Yes, they can come up with metaphors out of an image, but then how would you describe that relationship? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. We live our life in visuals only, right? So, quite a lot of our usual way of observing and absorbing the world is through our eyes. So, an effective story or a good story or a exciting story is what makes the visuals come to life in front of you. So even before we had our televisions, we had our phones, and we had animated movies as such. We always had either dramas or songs or anywhere else where everything was visually described. So that visual description is what basically stays with us. And therefore, images is how we think and share. Yeah, grandma stories. So you are even without having a physical board that I am able to see that. I am able to tell, oh yes, this Humpty Dumpty. If all I have to do is tell Humpty Dumpty, and he sat on the wall and he had a pretty big fun. And who was that person? What was that kind? Everything is just within seconds coming back to you. So it's a recall factor for us because we think in uh, visuals. Because the word that I said is only sound. But then when you interpret it, it's an image. And images are absorbed and shared or communicated through metaphors. And metaphors have stories. And stories have needs, values, the rest of it. The story is what you are and what you are not is exactly where who you are as an individual is. And therefore, the visual cues will take you on that path. Right? As soon as I now ask you to remember your favorite teacher in school, it's an image that comes first. It's a name as well as an image, mental image that comes first. And that triggers a memory. And with that, it triggers a emotion and a feeling. Or sometimes the emotion and the feeling in a very small aspect of this. And a certain emotion triggers the same kind of, like if you're happy, the very high chance that you'll go back to a happy memory while you're asking that. And therefore, the kind of metaphors that you're coming in touch with will also be happier metaphors. And if you're in a confusion, your metaphors will tend to be always chosen around the confusion and rather than anything else. So that's the interlinking, intermingling of how, say, visuals, cues, and the whole aspect of metaphor, stories, everything automatically adds on to that. And that answer your question.
Yes, it does. One of the things that I was taught when I was in school is to have a set of cards and then share a set of them and ask them which one they resonate with more and explore
Yeah,
it with them.
absolutely, absolutely. So that's one of the beautiful ways in which you can use cue cards, you can use visual cards to build on that. I have a chat. Hi Sunil, how do you try to guide clients into trying out using metaphors to describe their experience when they're getting too much into the details? Jenny, can you give an example?
Hi, Sunil. So sometimes clients, while they are telling their stories, it can get quite a bit long.
Mm-hmm.
So when they are getting too much into the details, I wanna, for example, just get to the heart of what they are really experiencing, what they are really feeling. So um, I want to try out asking them what metaphor would describe their experience, but I'm not really sure how to start that
Yeah.
conversation with them,
Yeah.
possibly. Yeah.
Mhm. So what I am understanding is that the client has shared quite a lot of stuff and is continuing to share. You are wondering what would be the space that you'd come back to as a next question. How do you enable them to move forward with using that metaphors while also being conscious of the session that or the contract that there is? Is that a fair understanding of what you want to ask?
Yes, and maybe possibly how to begin guiding them that, hey, maybe instead of us going into the details, what metaphor would you describe your experience, or how do you start that conversation?
Yeah, yeah. So usually, like generally, even beyond metaphors, if somebody is a client is talking quite a lot, so there is one thing which you can always work with, which is the feelings rather than
Mm-hmm.
the facts. The story is a lot of fact sharing. A lot of sharing is a lot of facts that are being exchanged. So with that, when somebody completes their sharing, you can ask, hey, how did it feel to express that right now?
Mm-hmm.
What feelings did you come in touch with while you're sharing the story? What opened up for you? What did you process? So that's how you can talk about it. Or if somebody's talked for some time and they're continuing to repeat a certain word or repeat a word that sets a certain pattern, then you sit with that pattern and say, hey, I heard you share this, this, this. What does it mean for you? And two
Mm-hmm.
ways to do it. Uh, but otherwise, typically, we don't try and navigate them back to that. What we allow is to have that space there, and we also move along with the client at that place. So instead of coming back to that and saying, hey, you're talking about this while you are sharing that, let's not go there, come here. So you go with that place because that feels more aligned. Either you recontract or you are saying, hey, you share this, and while you're sharing, you are so passionate about sharing that. Uh, I'm curious to understand what is the connection between what you brought up as a contract versus what you're now sharing.
Mm.
So
Okay,
that's
okay.
so there is that space saying, oh, I think what I brought up initially is no longer important because this is more important. Then you recontract. Or with that, the client comes back to saying, hey, I think what I originally wanted to say is that, but then this is connected because of this, this, this. And for them, internally, it's a connection.
Mhm.
And just maybe on a overarching segment, you don't use metaphors because it makes it, it's a part of PCC, it's something that
Mhm.
all coaches use. The metaphors for the client is a way of making their own meaning for themselves. So what you are giving them is their own tool. So you're reflecting their own tool back to them.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
Most welcome, Jenny. All right. Anyone else has a question? We are almost on top of the hour. Another 5 minutes. Anything else that you want to ask, you want to share, you want to see and express? And not every metaphor needs to be double tap. I think that's the understanding you need to get to. And some of it is a deeper, broader absorption of who they are as a person, may not be related to the contract that we've set. So it's just that you understand that that's who they are, or you have that space to say, oh, these may be the values and beliefs of the person. And depending on that,
So I was just gonna,
you understand. Yeah.
sorry, sorry, go ahead. Sunil,
No,
sorry,
I
go
was just
ahead.
closing.
Okay, so I was just going to ask that there are few people who have that art of speaking like that, might not mean, as per where they want to go, might not mean the same thing. So maybe once or twice, we can try figuring out if there's, like you said, like you use double tap. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're not getting to anywhere, then probably we should just leave it there and move on.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, see, you don't stick to that. Again, that's where the aspect of non-attached spaces come to that space. Like we are not attached to the metaphor, no, we're not attached to what it means to us, not where we're attached saying, hey, the client said this, it should be important. They may not have the vocabulary to share it, they may not have the safety to share it, they may not be interested in priority to share it right now, right here. Something else is important. So you let go if you feel that at that place, our job is to bring it up back to the client. And when you share that, it felt important for you. So if it's the client says no, then you let that go. You don't stick to say, oh yes, this was the only place that could have got us somewhere.
Like one of my client, were dealing with um, having a set uh, discipline for the personal aspect because he's very good with his professional aspect. And every time I ask a question, there's one poem that comes, or there's some shairi that he speaks. And initially, in the first, I think first two conversations, I was always confused. I'm like, what do I get out of it? But then, eventually now we're into our sixth or the seventh conversation. Um, and then I realized that, it's the art that and he's into the creative field, and therefore, all these things that he gets in between is the way he speaks. So then I've like stopped making sense of whatever he says when he says those shairis and those poems. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
fine.
absolutely. And generally, you don't have to make sense of the client because, like, one of the things on that side tracking is like I get asked at home saying, are you not affected by what your clients share? And because I don't get affected because nothing sticks. Because the only time I am trying to understand is when I have some remnants of it saying, oh, this person said this. What does this person mean by that? Because nothing sticks. There's nothing left to take back out of a session. And whatever we share is that shared space, right? So that's how we can see it. And therefore, it's easier. Yes, Avi, you had your hands raised.
I had my hand up and then I looked at the time and I said, oops, time is up. One of my clients said she feels like she's in the middle of the road. And I said, where is that road coming from?
Mm,
What do you mean by that? And that led to a whole lot of
absolutely.
unpacking. She had been confused. She didn't know where to go. And she said it just right. Thank you.
I think these are small words. If you look at it, three or four sentences, and middle of the road is just about four. So it's our skill set practice over a period of time to say, I think here something is important. And we don't go with that saying, oh, I think it's important and therefore it is. And with that, with the right word that you use, you unpack it for your client unpacks it themselves. All you are doing is that holding that space there for that unpacking. And I think Mary's asked for a demo. I think there's a lot of demos where mine where this had happened. So maybe I'll figure out something and I'll let you know when you can learn from that. All right, so we are perfectly on time. I'm hoping that if there are further questions, we can catch up on a one-to-one conversation. But otherwise, reiterating and resharing the slide back again, in case you would love to stay connected on LinkedIn. Uh, the QR is here. In case you want to join the tribe of coaches, again, the QR is here. And if you want to give a testimonial to what you learned today, what you understood, either on LinkedIn or on WhatsApp, here it is. And that's that. We close the conversation today for now here. Tomorrow, 11 o'clock, the same link. We have a journaling session. There's no gyan on what journaling will bring us. It's just a beautiful non-coaching-ish segment. We just journal and see what comes out for you at that point. We also have a Q&A, and we also have a session at 4 o'clock saying what makes you a good coach. So those three would culminate the ICW for us. And ICW afterwards, I'm offering for the next 2 months, one pro bono mentoring session with your recording and stuff. You can get your recording mentored by me. Or any other thing that you need mentoring on with the ICF, we can always catch up on a call, and that one is pro bono. Yes. So, Mahesh, I will share that with you. I'll share the overall link, right? So that is that for today. And we will catch up tomorrow and continue to catch up with the tribe of coaches Monday and Mondays. All right. That's that for today. And
Thank
anything
you so much,
else that
Sunil.
somebody wants to share, one last sharing we can have and we can close. Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you so
See you
much.
then.